All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the League Express podcast. My name's Jake Kearnan, and joining me as always is the editor of League Express, Martyn Sadler. And Martyn, back by popular demand, we've got Garry with us.
The legend, of course, yeah. One of the greatest ever players in for Great Britain and for England, and of course for Leeds and for Hull, for that matter. So changed a bit since I first laid my eyes on him when I think it was about 18. Garry, you're a bit, you had a bit more hair and a bit, you're a bit slimmer, perhaps. I would say.
Well, I must admit, Martyn, these 32s are nipping a little bit nowadays. If I'm honest with them, all I'll say is, guys, thanks very much for asking me back, and thanks for that introduction.
It's great. It's great to have you back. It really is, and we've got a lot to talk about, Jake, haven't we?
No, absolutely.
Today, I think.
And just for our listeners and viewers, Martyn, we're about to have, you might say, a little bit of a break from this setting. I'm heading off on 6 weeks' travel, backpacking around Eastern Europe. But
make sure you don't go for walks by yourself in the very hot weather after that very sad death of Michael Mosley, a few days ago. It gets very hot near the Mediterranean, mate. So take care.
I believe they are predicting some heat waves to come through as well. So,
as I say, just make sure you've got plenty of water with you.
But we have come prepared for the next few weeks, though, Martyn. We've been secretly in the background putting together some guest appearances for the podcast. So we'll look to release those over the next few weeks.
At the same time as the normal podcast runs on, probably Tuesday afternoon at 5 o'clock. You tend to put them online, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So although you'll be away, we'll still be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't worry.
I think we've tried our best with a lot of those episodes not to sort of mention things that have happened in recent weeks, so it doesn't put the time frame out. But all very interesting conversations with great figures in our game. So,
I think so. Yes.
That's something for the listeners and viewers to look forward to. So they'll be still coming out Tuesday afternoon every week. And if anything dramatic happens, any big news happens, we might have to get on a Zoom call, mate.
We might
do one over Zoom.
We might.
But without further ado, we've got a lot to get into. Obviously, we've just had Challenge Cup weekend, fellas. How about we start with the women's match, which I believe 9,000 were there in attendance for the women's match, obviously to watch St Helens beat Leeds. I believe the score was 22-0. What was your reaction to this matchup, Martyn?
Well, disappointing that it was one-sided. And the trouble is all the games at Wembley were one-sided, weren't they? And St Helens were just far too good for Leeds, and I was a bit surprised because I thought that Leeds have put a lot into the women's game at Headingley. They've put resources, they've put the players on contracts and so on. So I thought they'd probably perform better than they did. But St Helens, the St Helens women are a bit like the St Helens men, very determined, very collectively together. And I thought they were just far too good for the Leeds girls. Did you see the game, Garry?
To be honest with you, no. I never saw the game. I didn't watch it, no.
No. Well, that's interesting because you've said 9,000 were in the stadium. The viewing figures on BBC Two, the average viewing figure was 260,000, with 414,000 as a peak, which is pretty interesting because that's 59% higher than any previous women's game that's been shown on TV in this country. And, whatever we say, and I know not everybody's a great fan of, the women's game, maybe even Garry, I'm not so sure, but there is an audience for it. And, the same thing's true in Australia, isn't it? The women's State of Origin game got fantastic viewing figures over there. No, which we might want to talk about a bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing with the women's game. Some of the way that these girls have been developing over the last few years and some of the contact you see in the matches these days, it has me shaking in my boots as I sit on the couch at home watching. It's
the good thing about the women's game, in one sense, is that it's less structured than the men's game, and it's less power based. Obviously, women generally don't have the power that male athletes have. So if you want to see a slightly more open game, then that's for you probably.
No, absolutely. And I believe Zoe Harris was the player of the match in that one, the St Helens standoff. A good creative performance for her.
Yes, I think so. Yes. I mean, it was pretty difficult to pick the best St Helens player, I thought, but she got it, and it's a nice story, I think. And the one thing that I've made in League Express this week, though, and it's one that might be worth considering. Is that the Player of the Match award in that game doesn't carry the name of anyone. We've got the Landstod Trophy for the men, we've got the Ray French Award in the 1895 Cup, but nobody. It's just she got the Player of the Match award, and it was awarded by Andrea Dobson, who was one of the TV commentators. I mean, I've suggested that there ought to be a name attached to the award, and I've suggested Lindsay Burrow should be the name that goes with it, because I think she's just been so remarkable over the last 5 years. It would be great to have the Burrow name at Wembley if it's going to carry on being played at Wembley.
No, absolutely, and you touched on that in your column, I believe, as well.
Yeah,
which is a good read for anyone out there.
How would you think about that, Gary? Would you think Lindsay would be a great name for a Woman of the Match trophy?
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. From there, as we know, Rob's taking over now the Harry Sunderland from there. Yeah, so I wouldn't have an issue whatsoever. Lindsay Bill has been recognised, and I say, what better place to be at Wembley if that's where the ladies' final is going to stay?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know whether she would want that. Of course, I've not asked her, but it's just my suggestion that she'd be a real great a great name to add to that particular Woman of the Match trophy.
Oh, definitely. All right, well, we'll move on to the Challenge Cup final. We obviously had Wigan winning that one, 18 points to 8 over Warrington. What was your reaction to this one, Gary?
Well, do you know what? We was all looking for an absolute belter of a game, wasn't we? And the two teams themselves, Wigan and Warrington, the two form teams in Super League, they were in cracking form. All the big players, the big match players, they were all in great form. And I was expecting an absolute quality game, just what the Challenge Cup needed. We're on terrestrial television, and give our game, massive promotion. But boy, oh boy, we're massive disappointed. Not with Wigan. First of all, congratulations to Wigan again. We winning the Challenge Cup, and I tell you what, the motivation what that club has, from the top, from Chris Linsky, Marty Pete and his coaching staff, and the players themselves, and they said it in the League Express this week. It's all about that. We want to be consistent in everything what we do. When we come to work every day of the week, we want to be consistent. It must be quality. We need to be the best what we can be, and so the consistency, the ambition, the drive what Wigan have, not just to be the best week in and week out in the competition, but also to not competing for trophies, but winning trophies. So that's a massive compliment, and well done to that great club. But Warrington, boy, oh boy. Do you know what? I always want, teams to be flamboyant. I always want teams to play off the cuff of a league. I always want it to be moving the ball as early as possible, what they can, but it's always been a golden rule in rugby league that you've got to set a platform. It's like building a house with a foundation. You've got to set a bit of foundation for yourself. But Warrington forwards did absolute nothing from a point of view where when they were taking the ball up, there wasn't running hard and straight and direct.
No.
And then on defence, like the words when they played in the quarter-final, certainly against St Helens, they got ripped into the Saints forwards. On Saturday, defensive-wise, they did get ripped in. There was no enthusiasm. There's no purpose from there. I just felt it was a very, very soft performance from Warrington, and and then overall, it just let the game down because all Wigan did, and if I'm honest with you, I don't think Wigan got out of second gear because they didn't have to do, because Warrington was so poor. They'll learn from that. I'm sure Martyn will say about the players who haven't played in a final before, but Warrington, they're a better team than that. But again, it's the Challenge Cup, it's a final. Wigan's DNA, they know what it's all about when the pressure's on from there, and congratulations to them. But Warrington, very, very poor.
They seemed to freeze on the day, didn't they? As far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talk about the fact that there were 12 Warrington players who hadn't played in a major final before. And the trouble is, with having so many players in that situation, you're never quite sure how they're all going to react when it comes to the big game. Because I don't care what anybody says, when it's a big game like that at Wembley or at Old Trafford, it's a different experience to playing a normal game, isn't it? I think. And Gary, I mean, you've played in these games, so you would know. But it's a different experience, and you need a lot of experience in your team to be able to handle that and to be able to calm other players down. The great thing for Wigan had 2 players suspended, of course, Adam Kearnan and Tyler Dupree, but it didn't have any effect on them at all, really. And young Zach Eckersley came in and actually scored the first try from a Bevan French kick near the line. And that, of course, immediately settled any nerves that he might have had. And, he fitted in seamlessly into the Wigan side, didn't he? Didn't show... I mean, he dropped one ball early on. That was... And I thought, oh, my goodness, is that going to be a problem? But once he scored the try, he was totally reliable. I mean, it's interesting that last time Warrington were at Wembley was when they beat St Helens in 2019. But there were only 2 players in the 17 on Saturday that were still there from that game. And I thought, if I'm honest, I thought it was a mistake to leave Stefan Ratchford as the 18th man, because Stefan's been in that position before. He would have, added that touch of experience in the on the pitch, that touch of leadership, I think, that they actually needed. I know he's at the veteran stage, but they just didn't seem to have the leadership. And also, you saw Mike Cooper playing for Wigan. Well, he left, he was a stalwart at Warrington for so many years. And you saw him, as the Wigan players gathered round, he was sort of delivering the speech to sort of motivate them to win the game. And that's just what Warrington seemed to lack to me. They let him go. I mean, when Darryl Powell was the coach there, I think he had a personality clash with Darryl or something. But God, they could have done with him on Saturday. To be honest, I think.
Yeah, just a few things, like as you were saying, Gary. You've got to earn the right to play football, don't you? Yeah. You've got to set that platform early, like you said. And they really needed someone like Paul Vaughan to just take the fight to that that Wigan pack. My bad.
Well, to be honest with you, they needed all the forwards to do that, And I said, and at half time when George Williams got interviewed, he just said, "Well, we're not sticking to this so-called word. It's our processes. We're not sticking to the game plan. We're just playing off the cuff." And I thought, I'm sorry, but that is just totally wrong. And you're the captain, George. If I'd have been the captain at that Warrington side, after 15 minutes, I'd have just said, hey, hold on. You forwards now, you're going to start being tough. You're going to make sure that when you get the ball, when we're bringing away from his own line, you're going to make sure that we're running hard and straight and direct so we can get a good kicking game, get some good yards. And then also, too, as well, when we're defending, then we're going to get ripped into these Wigan forwards, because there was just nothing there whatsoever. With that ball in hand, from a defensive-wise, no pressure put on Wigan. And I reckon Wigan, when they went 12-0 up after 20 minutes, they just thought, I tell you what, this is like a picnic for us. This is like a picnic for us, because Warrington, no aggression, no enthusiasm, coming up with mistakes in good field position for Wigan. It was far, far too easy. But that's not Wigan's fault. It's in their DNA. They know what finals are all about. But another thing I'd like to ask as well, I don't know what you think of this, Martyn, is that when Wigan do play teams in semi-finals and finals, because that's where they're going to be, there's no two ways about it, with the quality of what they've got, their ambition, what they've got from the top, right from the coaching staff to all the players and from the academy. What would you think, Martyn, when they do play Wigan in semi-finals and finals, the opposition, how do you think they want to play against Wigan? Because if they get into that arm wrestle, that ain't going to win.
They're not going to beat them.
If they're going to want to just play a patient, boring game of rugby league, that ain't going to happen. Team are going to be thinking, I'll tell you what, how are we going to play against Wigan, and what's going to be the best so-called process to beat him in semi-finals and finals?
Well, I suppose we ought to ask Willie Peters, because he was the last coach to coach a team to win, to beat Wigan in the semi-final last year, and they obviously had a game plan at the time. But Matty Pete said something quite. I was watching the BBC coverage yesterday of the game at home, and it was interesting to see Matty Pete before the game say that, they asked him what he'd learned from last year's game against Hull KR, that defeat. And he said, well, we probably were too reliant on Harry Smith's kicking game as probably the only real kicker in the team. So he said this season, or since then, Bevan French has developed his kicking game to give us a dual threat. With a kicking game, and you saw that, didn't you, on Saturday? With you've seen it a lot this year. Actually, Bevan French has kicked a lot, not as much as Harry Smith, but they've had that threat of Wigan, and it was Bevan French's kick, of course, that led to the first try for Wigan on Saturday. So they seem to have all bases covered to Wigan, and the interesting thing was they allowed the BBC cameras into their sort of preparation, or part of their preparations for the final. And, it all looks so, so coordinated at Wigan. Everything seems to work so well. And the players all buy into everything that they're doing. Yeah. The coach has a great relationship with the players. And, you sort of think, well, where are the weak points? And I'm afraid, Gary, it's not that easy to spot them, is it, really?
No, but the point I'm making, Matt, is it's not from Wigan. It's the opposition when they are going to play it. And so you mentioned Willie Peters when they beat him last year. Is so now when we get to semi-final time come Old Trafford at the end of the season. What sort of game plan, our opposition team going to come up against Wigan, because it's going to be hard to beat them. I guess whatever game plan they come up with.
What would your suggestion be if you were to coach an opposition team? What would your plan of attack be?
Mine would be for the first 10 or 15 minutes, just get ripped in. We'd run hard and straight with the ball, and then defensive wise, and also you've got to be disciplined certainly from a defensive point of view. But just don't give Wigan any piggybacks. Just do not give them any confidence in that first 15, 20 minutes. You've got to try and rattle Wigan. You've got to try and rattle and put them off their game, and then what you've got to try and do is make sure that Wigan know they're going to be in the game. They know that they've got to be in the game, because if you don't, then it's just meat and drink to them, and it just becomes all so simple for them.
It's interesting, isn't it, that earlier this season, I think was it the last time Wigan lost a game, or almost the last time, was it Hull KR?
Hull KR, yeah.
Hull KR absolutely hammered them in the early stages of that game. Really took them on in the middle and succeeded, and won convincingly. But the trouble is, they couldn't do it again in the semi-final this year, could they?
Yeah.
That's where Wigan had learnt the lesson. I mean, that's the other thing about Wigan. They seem to learn lessons very quickly, pretty well.
Very quickly. And also, as well, you mentioned there with the players, and we talk about the Wigan DNA, but do you know what? Which is great, and I hope now. We'll speak about that when Leeds have got a new guy who's coming from there. But what everybody does at Wigan, I would imagine, when a player who's going to sign for Wigan, Chris Ladlinsky and Matty P and O'Loughlin and Thomas Lulawai, they will sit this player down, and he's said it as well as Cruz Lehman in the League Express this week. You have got to buy into Wigan's DNA.
Absolutely.
If you don't buy into Wigan's DNA from day one, you will not get signed. So that's what it's all about. Everybody buys into the same purpose, what they are there for. Everybody's pulling the same piece of rope. And I tell you what, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to see them with the success what they get, and that's pretty hard to say from a Leeds man. I can reassure you, because we know how Wigan dominated the game when I was playing in the 80s and 90s. Wigan now are going to dominate the game as long as what they want to do, because they have got the right DNA. They're bringing the right quality, right recruitment of players. Everybody buys into it, and I'll tell you what, it's great work done by that club, and all the best to them.
Yeah, and the remarkable thing is that Matty Pete, the coach, was never a top player. He only, I don't think ever played first grade. He played academy and probably reserve grade for Wigan, but never made it into the first team. And yet, his intelligence and understanding of what's needed is second to none. I mean, I think I agree with you, Gary, that there's a very good chance we're going to dominate for the next few years, and it's going to be different. I've written about that in League Express this week. Whereas in the 1980s and 90s, they dominated by spending a lot more money than everybody else and going full time, had all the best players, and ultimately went bankrupt because of doing that. Yeah. This year, there's no chance of that. This time, there's no chance of that happening. They will, they are an incredibly well-run club. They've got a very, very wealthy guy behind them anyway, so financial troubles aren't going to worry them. So there's the only thing I can see stopping them potentially is if an NRL club looks at what's going on there and decides that they'd like some of what Wigan have got, and they come in and make a bid for Matty Pete. But having said that, Wigan have got the financial strength to be able to counter anything.
I think Matty Pete's Wigan through and through.
Well, that's right.
That's right. He's got his 7-year contract from there, but also I'll describe Matty Pete in one word as a coach: smart.
That's right. But as I say, you're right. He's got a 7-year period there, but the problem with that is that the difficulty for a coach is making everything variable enough over that time. Players tend to get. I've heard players say
you get bored. Yeah.
They get bored with a particular approach.
Exactly.
So you've got to understand how to vary your approach.
But you know what, Martyn, as well, and Chris Ladlinsky said it in the piece as well in the League Express. It's quite simple. We've got to make sure that we keep that ambition going. We need to come up with fresh ideas. With fresh formulas or whatever terminology you want to put on there, and that's what Wigan will do to making sure that the club themselves don't get bored. Because again, back in my day, 80s and 90s, Wigan were in every final. The opposition fans just literally got bored. I think sometimes the Wigan fans might have got bored of it, because
I think they did.
They hammered everybody. But Wigan now, they've got this mentality where we are going to make sure that the success what we bring to this club, nobody's going to get bored. We're ambitious, and we're going to make sure that we stay at the top of that tree as long as possible. As long as they want to keep at the top of this tree, the ambition and also to the learning curve, that word again, learning curve, and the enjoyment of what they get, they are going to be very, very hard to knock off, I would say, at least for the next 5 years.
It's a massive challenge to every other club.
It is, absolutely.
Incidentally, we've still got a few copies of this book left, 50 Wigan Legends in their own words. And, any Wigan fan or anybody who's watched the Challenge Cup final who'd like to learn a little bit more about the values that underlie the Wigan club, that book actually tells you a hell of a lot if you read through some of the great legends from Ellery Hanley and the Fire and Sean Edwards and so many of them who have achieved massive things at Wigan. If you want to understand that DNA, then that book tells you an awful lot. It takes you a long way along the way.
Yeah. If I'm Sam Burgess and I'm going back to Wigan in the future, my only focus is we're going in, we're going to ambush them, we're going to just kill them with our line speed, we're going to make this a defensive matchup. Don't worry about the attack. Just go in, stampede, ambush mentality, and try and win the game defensively.
It's quite simple. What you got to do, you got to make sure that you got to let Wigan know that they're going to be in a game. Simple as that. And you've got to let them know very, very quickly, and maintain that for the first 10 or 15 minutes, and then they say, right, okay, they're having a look. They're having a look at it. But on Saturday, there were just absolutely none of that whatsoever. And it was just too easy. I'll tell you what, the Wigan forwards, after the game on Saturday, I bet you not one of them got in an ice bath.
Yeah.
The only ice they would have seen would have been in the lager or the ciders after the game.
Yeah.
They would not have needed to get an ice. Another Wigan players would have had to get an ice bath on Saturday because there was no physicality whatsoever from Warrington forwards.
I mean, this is a real challenge for Sam Burgess, isn't it? Because
it is, yeah.
Because it wasn't just that they had 12 players who'd not been in a final before, but obviously it was Sam's first major final as a coach. And I mean, I think Sam Burgess is a very smart guy. And I'm sure he will learn an awful lot from that game. Yeah. And I suspect, that if Warrington do get to the grand final, for example, I don't think we'll see a similar Warrington performance. No. At least I hope not, because if we do, they'll lose that one as well. And I mean, the funny thing is, they beat St Helens in the Challenge Cup, didn't they? And
hammered them, battered them.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. They did, and then they murdered Huddersfield in the semi-final. But it seemed to. It almost was as though they were in awe of Wigan, I thought, on Saturday.
Yeah, but also as well, when you was watching it again after 10 or 15 minutes, I just felt as though, hold on, Warrington here. Do you think you're just playing a game of touch and pass in training? It would just not inspiring or enthusiastic or any purpose in it whatsoever. Just a matter of we'll just play a game of touch and pass. Well, Wigan don't play touch and pass.
No.
They don't. But if you think you're going to play touch and pass, they'll go Wigan. Oh, this is easy for us.
Yeah.
This is easy. Because you're not testing us. You're not testing us from a point of view by asking questions with the ball in hand, and then certainly physically wise, defensive wise, absolutely nothing whatsoever. No, it was a very, very poor. And yes, Sam will learn from that, and I'm sure he will be having some harsh words because all the major players didn't stand up neither. He were rocks and diamonds, wasn't he, Matt Duffy? He were rocks and diamonds again. Matty Aston's worst game you'd seen. So the other winger Fulish.
George Williams made a lot of errors.
Yeah, George a lot of errors, and he couldn't really create because there were nobody going forward. Same with Drinkwater. It was just a non-performance from Warrington.
They didn't have anybody. When Eckersley scored that early try, they should have all been gathered round, and somebody should have been laying the law down, and saying, this it's not good enough. This is a poor start. We're not going to let them in again. And nobody seemed to do that. That's why I say somebody like Mike Cooper, if he'd been playing for them as opposed to playing for Wigan, I think he would have. Grabbed everybody by the lapels and said, "Come on, we can't have this."
Well, I tell you, if it not come from the coach, but also it should have come from the captain, because I can reassure you, if I'd have been captain at Warrington side on Saturday, I would have said quite simply, right, the next 5 sets. We complete the sets. It might be boring, but the next 5 sets we complete. We get to the kick and we get Wigan 10 or 15 yards from their own try line. Did they do that? No, they didn't.
No.
And kick early as well.
Absolutely.
If you have to kick early,
yeah.
just get them on the back
but
foot.
just make sure you get them back down there 10 metres if you can from the road track and make them work out of there.
And hurry them into making mistakes.
Make them work and then get ripped in defensive-wise. But, it's too late now because it didn't happen and it was far too easy for Wigan. And again, congratulations. Is it the 21st time? Is it the Challenge Cup?
21st time.
The 21st time, so congratulations.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, one person who Sam will have to prepare for in future matches is Bevan French. He put on a masterclass at Wembley. What were your thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, he's the best player in Super League, isn't he? And as Martyn mentioned, Marty Pete, he developed his kicking game from there. But what I love to see in a halfback, he just reads the game very well. You won't see Frenchy for about 5, 10, 15 minutes, but then when he decides to come in, very, very dangerous. That's what I love to see. You don't need to be involved in every set of six. You just have a look around, see who's maybe having a bludgeon defence or this sort of thing from there, and then just strike exactly what he does. Easily deserved the man of the match, and he's the best player in Super League by far.
Yes, he could have actually had 2 tries, couldn't he? Because he scored one just before the interval where he was penalised for making a double movement, which I think is the most ridiculous rule in rugby league, actually, the double movement rule. If you can, get the ball over the line and score before the referee shouts held, then I think a try should stand. But anyway, I'm not complaining about the application of that rule. It was a double movement, as it turns out, but I don't think that should be penalised, and that would have put Wigan onto 18 points at half time, which would have put them out of sight. I was actually quite glad it was disallowed, really,
just for the contest.
So, but I just think it's a ridiculous rule.
I must say, and I'll put this vision on the video, but that try he scored when they had that scrum feed, his just natural instinct. If you watch it back, Toby King bites in from his centre, shoots in on Bevan French. There was no need for that because they had the men covered. But for French just to catch the ball and straight away, bang, off the right foot.
We're also, too, when you look at it, we just sort of lack a communication with the Warrington defenders. The back row was slow to get out there. Toby King just literally thought, well, I don't know what to do here. I don't know where I am. Bevan French said, thank you very much. This is so easy for me. Just to pace what he's got, the sidestep. Well, it was just too easy. It was just too easy. It was like what you expect about 8-year-olds to defend, the under 8s. That's all that was. Too easy and too soft.
The thing about great players is they do make things look easy.
Exactly. Make it look easy. But they made it look very easy.
You made it look easy a few times, Gary. I'm sure it wasn't.
But they made it look very easy for Bevan French, didn't they? But it was just total lack of communication, total lack of commitment on defence from there. And if you give any sort of space or time to a player of the quality of Bevan French, there's only one thing that's going to happen: you're going to concede a 4-pointer.
That's right. He'll make you pay for it. Now, what did you men make of the 2 yellow cards to start the match?
Unfortunately, I'll just go through it very quickly. Unfortunately, if contact with the head, then that's what's going to happen. That's all I'll say on it. Simple as that.
Yeah, I thought Mike Cooper was unluckier of the two. But, I thought the second yellow card was probably justified. But the first one, I'm not sure about, really. But fortunately, I thought we might be heading for a sort of festival of yellow cards, given that 2 happened in the first 5 minutes. But fortunately, it calmed down and we didn't get another. And, it didn't have a bearing on the game, did it, really?
No.
I just wish we could get to a stage where players don't lay down and milk penalties trying to get these yellow cards to happen. But if you're going to get a penalty for it and the other player's going to, lose a player...
Yeah. Well, I think the Wigan players totally emerged to stay down, didn't they?
Yeah. Now, the crowd attendance, 64,845 fans. Do you think that's a pass?
No, not really, because don't forget, there were only that many there because Wakefield took so many fans for the... Wakefield is said to have taken about 7,000 fans for the 1895 Cup final, which is miles ahead of any attendance that's been taken to that game before by any other club. So if you take those 7,000 off, that would be 57,000 then, wouldn't it? So I don't think, I'd been hoping for a crowd of 70,000 or even more. I don't think you can... I mean, it wasn't great. And, I mean, obviously on the same day at the same time across town at Twickenham, they had a full house of 82,000 for their Premiership final. So they seem able to sell their finals and we seem to struggle to sell ours. And, I still don't think that playing the Challenge Cup final in the middle of the season is a great idea, personally.
And they've announced that it's going to be in June
In
again
June
next
the
year
7th
as
next
well.
year, yeah. Well, at least they've announced it in plenty of time. So, but you know, they need to find a way to get clubs to support the Challenge Cup in the way they used to. And I've suggested a few things, you know, in League Express before, you know, giving an allocation of tickets to clubs to all the clubs in Super League, Championship and League One, and making them sell them, even if they want to discount them.
Can we make sure next year that it's not on the same day as the Premiership Rugby Grand Final? Is it too much to ask for?
It
The same city at the same time?
It probably will be. Who knows?
You're shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, I'm not sure there's a lot of crossover, actually, between the two codes, really, if I'm really honest about it. And, you know, I'm not even sure, I don't know whether the Challenge Cup final even had a report in some of the Sunday newspapers this year. You know, the national media have just turned their back on our sport, by and large.
Yeah, okay. All right, fellas, well, if you're happy to wrap up the Challenge Cup talking points there, we can move on to the 1895 Cup, which obviously saw Wakefield dominate Sheffield 52-6. Any real surprises here?
Well,
Martyn?
it was, again, unfortunate that it was so one-sided, but Sheffield scored the first try as well.
That's right, yeah.
Didn't they? They went 6-0 ahead. You know, and you thought, well, this could be a decent game, but once Lachlan Walmsley intercepted the ball and ran the length of the field to touchdown to make it 6-all, you sort of had that feeling that, you know, we can see how this game is going to unfold. One thing that I was really pleased about was to see Jermaine McGilvray score 2 tries, because I don't think he's ever played at Wembley. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's played at Wembley, and certainly not scored a try at Wembley. And he scored 2 in his first try, which we made the try of the week, was came from a brilliant, an absolutely brilliant pass by young Jowett, and it was the 7th try of that Wakefield scored, which was particularly appropriate, given that there was a dedication to Rob Burrow. The number 7 came up a lot in that game. So for Jerry McGilvray to score the 7th try, I thought was a really nice touch, and it was a great try as well.
No, absolutely. And Luke Gale, player of the match, I believe?
Yes, the Ray French Award. Yeah,
yeah.
He said it could have gone to several players.
It's hard to pick, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was sort of watching that match and just thought, it's a shame that the crowd didn't stay and hang around and watch that contest after the Challenge Cup, which is a bit disappointing. I don't know what the exact crowd figure was for that match, but obviously
I think it was about 9,000.
Yeah, okay.
9,000 stayed.
Right. See, for me, if I'm spending money to go to Wembley for a weekend, I'm going to go and watch every single match, just as a rugby league fan.
Rugby league fans won't do that.
Yeah.
No.
They'll watch their club.
They'll watch the club, and that's it. That's what they will do. Yeah,
See,
they won't.
It's like, I don't know. The only thing I can sort of compare it to is like Grand Final weekend in Australia or Magic weekend. You go and you pay your money and you watch the reserve grades and all the other teams, but yeah. Bit of a shame.
Well, my nephew, who's a Wakefield supporter, went to the game and took his girlfriend with him, and I think that was her first ever experience of going to a rugby league game.
Wow.
I think. I'm not sure, but I think it was. And I was talking to her yesterday, and she said it was a fabulous day. She absolutely loved it. You know, and Wakefield winning, of course, was the cream on the cake.
Yeah, absolutely. No, good on her. And hopefully she'll attend many more Wakefield Trinity games to come, mate.
You certainly hope so. By the way, that game was shown on Super League Plus, the streaming service, and got 20,000 views in total. So that was pretty good.
That's good, yeah.
And we've not mentioned the kids game, the Champion Schools game, which kicked off at 10 o'clock, which is just absolutely ridiculous, isn't it, really?
Bonkers.
Absolutely bonkers. So virtually nobody was in the stadium at that point to see St Peter's of Orrell beat the Glantaff School from Cardiff. I think it was 22-6 the score in that game, with Harry Brown scoring a try. Did you see that? Harry Brown, the son of Kevin Brown, who was on the pundits team with the BBC on Saturday. Apparently, Kevin has played 4 times at Wembley and lost every time.
I know.
And his son played there for the first time and got a winner's medal.
That's awesome.
And Kevin joked. I think Kevin's a really great pundit, actually, and joked that his son was hiding his medal from his dad because he didn't want him to take it off him.
I think Kevin's got the same career as me, playing in loads of finals but never won one.
Yeah. And there were apparently 10,000 people watched that Champions Schools game on YouTube. There was a live stream on YouTube, and 10,000 people watched it, which was pretty good, wasn't it?
No, definitely.
Yeah.
That's
So
a good
also,
viewing.
we just mentioned the 1895 Cup, and so you mentioned the women's game before. So what I think the 1895 Cup should be before the men's game because it's on terrestrial television, and then what this does for the audience, and also to look at attract new sponsors, it gives us on terrestrial television just to get out there how good and quality the championship is.
Of course,
So I think the 1895 Cup should be the curtain raiser towards the Challenge Cup because all new audience out there, it shows you sponsors what quality the championship brings. Okay, it was a one-sided game, but that's because you got a full-time squad, quality players against a part-time side, and that's no disrespect to Sheffield. But as I say, the 1895 Cup should be before the Challenge Cup, and let everybody see what quality the championship is.
Well, it's always the case, isn't it? You build up to your biggest game.
Yeah,
it's like going to see a rock band, playing in an arena somewhere. You don't bring them on first and then put the support acts on afterwards, do you? You always put the support acts on first, and it's so basic. But of course, the problem is, would the BBC agree to that? If it had been putting the Challenge Cup kickoff back to say 5:30 or 6 o'clock, would the BBC agree to that? Who knows? They probably wouldn't have.
Well, why not? Well, I know we got the schools from there, but maybe play the schools at the end. Why not put the women on at 10:30?
Yeah,
themselves.
Who knows?
But I think
we've actually got that.
Yeah.
We've actually got that question as the Readers' Poll question in League Express this week.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a vote on that, go online onto the TotalRL.com website and cast your vote and decide how you'd like the Challenge Cup Finals Day to be organised.
No, definitely. I'm sure there'll be plenty of different answers. A lot of people have their own thoughts.
I'm sure.
But we'll move on to some of the news that's doing the rounds over the last week or so. One of the biggest ones is Leeds Rhinos. They've appointed Ian Blease as their new sporting director. I believe he's going to oversee all of the on-field activity at the club. Do you think this will make a difference at your old club, Gary?
Well, let me tell you this: I'm absolutely delighted that Ian Blease is coming to our club. Leeds said they were going to bring, or they wanted a rugby league person. Blease is a rugby. I think he's been in the game same time as me, around about the 40-year mark. He's done a great job there at Salford. I'm just hoping that it brings Paul Rowley and he sacks Ronan Smith. Yeah. I'm not speaking on my own philosophy here. I'm speaking on many, many thousands of Leeds fans. We don't want Ronan Smith as our coach. So hopefully Bleasy will bring Paul Rowley. I'm sorry to say that, Salford fans, because obviously we've taken two of their best players as well. By the way, they're not playing that well for us as well. So there's that chemistry there between Blease and the two players in Brodie Croft and Ackers, and also with Paul Rowley. So I'm hoping that's the first job he does. But then also as well, what Bleasy will realise is the size of the club. It's a massive city club. It will take him, I would say, around about 12 months to get used to what Leeds Rugby League Club is all about. I know they're called Leeds Rhinos now, but as I say, it's huge, a big city club. Everybody will want a piece of him. Everybody will want a part of him. But delighted he's got that role. Yes, we've got the right man. Everybody's asking the same question. Will he be allowed to get on with the job? Will it be him who'll be making all the calls behind, or will there be interference? As we know, the involvement with Gary Harrington still at the club from there, with the Kevin Sinfield scenario. That didn't work out. We're all led to believe that Ian Blease will be in total control from there.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he's in total control. I hope it gets it right, because it's quite simple. Leeds Rugby League Club is the biggest club in the game. Leeds not just need to be competing for the top of the league and for the cup competitions. They need to be in the finals. And as a sporting director or sports head of all the sports there at Headingley, I can't think of a better man, to be honest with you. I wish him all the success. And I say, but the first job he's got to do, get rid of Ronan Smith, get Paul Rowley, and I speak on behalf of many, many Leeds Rugby League fans.
I have a funny feeling, Gary, that Paul Rowley might get kidnapped in the next few days, and if he does, you'll be the chief suspect.
Well, I apologise to the Salford fans, because and I guess the worry's going to be what's going to happen to Salford. But I'm sure they've got plans in there to make it sure that they can keep that consistency going. What they've done.
What Salford need is a wealthy backer, so that they can counter this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the biggest challenge for Leeds. I think you've mentioned Rowan Smith, who, obviously will be under pressure and is under pressure. But the other guy who's under pressure at Leeds now is Garry Etherington, because Garry has been in charge of all rugby matters at Headingley for so long, and since taking that club in 1996 when he moved from Sheffield with Paul Caddick in that worked so well for so many years, didn't it?
Yep.
It really worked. They really got the club sorted out. They've redeveloped the stadium in a fantastic. It's a brilliant venue. They've done a wonderful job off the field, but in recent years they seem to have taken their eye off the ball on the field. And it may be because they had such a talented group of players who came through together at one point, and then more or less all retired at the same time as well, and that does make it difficult.
The last 9 seasons, Martyn, Leeds have only finished in the top 4 once. That is simply not good enough.
No.
That is not good enough. And I'm
sure Garry Etherington would agree with that.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. But what's he done about it? He's done absolutely nothing. And even now they still talk about the golden era. Well, we all knew, from a Leeds point of view, we all knew from 2012 the golden era was going to finish in 2015. But they've done nothing from a point of view where, the youngsters coming through, and then we all know then Maguire and Robbie was going to retire in 2017. We've had no decent half-back since 2017. We've been in the top 4 only once in the last 9 years. It's simply not good enough. But what Blease has brought to Salford from there is that word, what is very, very, very important in sport is consistency. And you look at the consistency, what he's done with Salford. Who would have thought that Salford would have been in the grand final? Who would have thought Salford would have got to a Challenge Cup final over the last 5 years? He has brought consistency to that club. What he needs to bring to our club is quite simple. Get the recruitment right, because the recruitment has been very, very poor. There's only been one man in charge of that, and that has been Garry himself. So the consistency, what Blease needs to bring to that club, and I say I wish him all the very best, but it's going to be a massive job, massive turnaround, taking 12 months to realise how big the club is from there. Because literally it's simply not good enough for the size of Leeds.
I think your recommendation, Garry, if I understand you correctly, is that they move for Paul Rowley and make Danny Maguire his assistant.
Yes, I was going to say that as well. Yeah, so bring Danny Maguire in as the assistant, because what Danny brings, he knows the Leeds DNA. And like Wigan, Chris Adlinski knows the DNA, Matty Peake knows the DNA, Sean O'Loughlin knows it, and so does Thomas Lulawai. So what we need to do now, yes, Paul Rowley in. I know Rowley would absolutely jump. He would run down the M62. No disrespect again to Salford, the great job he's done from there, and I say the enjoyment what he's got out of that job. But for me, it's time to move on. Paul Rowley would be great as a coach, plays attractive rugby league, what the Leeds fans would want, but he needs that assistant who knows the Leeds DNA. Maguire has proved himself as an assistant coach from there. Get him in there.
A very intelligent guy, Maguire.
Absolutely. Get him in there as your second man. I think that would be the ideal coaching scenario.
The other coach who, if I were them, or if I were Ian Blease, I would look possibly towards trying to get would be Lee Breers, who's with Brisbane at the moment, who's now being linked with South Sydney, going to South Sydney as Wayne Bennett's assistant there. I think Lee Breers has been the Brisbane attack coach, and I think he would bring a really attractive style of rugby to Leeds if they could get him. If they can't get Rowley.
Well, as a head coach, without a doubt. If we can't get Rowley, I'd love Lee Breers. I said Lee Breers for Hull, and give him a 7-year contract, because that's how long it'd take. But if you could get Rowley and Breers, but also they've got to put them on long-term contracts. Got to put them at least a 5-year deal, because let's not forget the words. Kevin only stayed there as sporting director, I think, for less than 12 months. And Kevin's been he was at Leeds since he was 14 years of age. He was there forever, wasn't he? And when Kevin took that job on, and his quote was, "This club is rotten to the core." Can you remember the words, what he said?
Yes,
can you remember the words, what he said?
He said it on TV, didn't
absolutely. He came out with publicity-wise, and I'm sure, obviously, I don't think Garry would have liked that anyway, to be honest with you.
I'm sure he wouldn't.
I'm sure he wouldn't know. But Kevin was only being honest and open, because he knows what the DNA is at Leeds. Yeah. He knows what it's all about.
But I've still never... I would still love to know precisely what made him say that. Because that was a really big thing to say. Wasn't it?
I could give you. I'm sure one of the reasons why is because Kevin has been at that club since a 14-year-old, and then he's known. He'll know then from the scholarship, the academy, nowhere near good enough how it should have been and how it was.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why he said it, and he saw the sort of talent that wasn't there. that should have been coming through, and that's the reason why he said it. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and so we need to bring somebody on that coaching staff who knows what the DNA is at the club, know better at this moment in time who would be available, and I'm sure Danny Maguire would do the same. He'd be straight down he'd run down the motorway, the short journey from Castleford to be part of the Leeds Rugby League club again, and let's get our club back to where nobody has a God-given right to win trophies.
No.
Nobody has a God-given right to be top of the league, but it's only going to be all the hard work. But if we put all the fundamentals in, which we are doing now, with Ian Blease, hopefully sacking Roland Smith, get Paul Rowley, get Danny Maguire. If we can't get Paul Rowley, maybe Lee Breers from there. We're starting all over again, and let's get Leeds Rugby League Club, me as a supporter, back to where they belong. Simple as that.
Well said.
You certainly can't say it any more directly. Yeah.
All right. Well,
And by the way, I speak on many thousands of Leeds Rugby League fans as well, by the way.
Oh, no doubt.
Not just myself, many thousands of Leeds Rugby League fans.
I have a funny feeling that we'll see that in a few messages on YouTube.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're a voice for many people, Gary, so I'm sure they'll appreciate it, mate. Now, just some news this morning. I saw a bit of player movement news. It looks like Lee Leopards have signed young David Armstrong from the Newcastle Knights.
Yeah.
He's played, I think the figure, he's played 5 NRL games now. He scored 5 tries. I think he had a hat-trick at the Magic Round weekend. He's filling in for Callum
Very good
Ponga
attacking fullback
at the moment. And with his play at the moment, apparently they were attracting offers from the Sydney Roosters. Knights want to try and keep him on, but it looks like Lee Leopards have...
That's an interesting one, isn't it? That's a big signing for Lee.
Yeah. And might be the spark that they need. Obviously, they're losing a lot of players next season.
Oh, yeah, but they'll be in the market for players to replace them.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Well, you've got a chairman there, Lee, haven't you? Derek Bowman's not resting on his laurels.
No.
No way, mate. No. And I say last season was sensational. This year, because of the injury to his major players, but Derek won't make that as an excuse. It's all part of the game from there. But he wants to make sure again that Lee are up there. They're contesting for the top 6, top 4, challenging there for the Challenge Cup and the Grand Final. You know, it's and I say he wants his club to be consistent week in, week out, and year in, year out. And fair play to Derek.
I think we can probably reveal now that Derek will be joining us on this podcast in a few weeks' time. We've already done the interview with him, haven't we? And it's one that's certainly worth watching.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's just says it how he is, doesn't he, Martyn? That was the
he's brilliant.
No wrong with that, boys.
He's a brilliant guest. Yeah.
And there was quite a long one, that one, so we'll probably do a 2-parter for that episode.
But we need more guys like him in rugby league.
We do,
know, the enthusiasm and the vibrancy.
And speaking their mind.
Correct. And the purpose, what he brings to the game. We need
Yes.
more. We need more people like that, and we need more people, right? Because listen, at the end of the day, whether the RFL like it or not, you know that the game is in a bad shape. It is, and now until them people decide to get their head out of the sand, and address the situations what we have got on the massive situations, and the more people like Derek Beaumont who come out there, say it as it is. It's not just for his own ego, because we've all got our own egos, but it's for the good of the game.
Yeah.
It's for the good of the game, because we all care about the game, we love the game, and we just want people who are in charge, listen to people who care, and let's all move forward. And let's be the best what we can be. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
The one thing I sort of appreciate about Derek is he's very outspoken, but he's also very humble.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a perfect balance of talking when he needs to, but also being very humble about what he's achieved.
Yeah.
You know what Derek Beaumont
Business
does?
life.
He talks the talk, and he walks the walk.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Simple as that.
Now, one club who has poached a lot of Derek's players is Hull FC. I just wanted to ask you, mate, what have you made of their latest recruitments? Obviously, they've appointed John Cartwright as head coach going forward. What's your reaction? I think the last time we spoke was just after the Richie Myler, Sam Burgess incident in the tunnel.
Well, I don't know much about John Cartwright's son, so I don't really know a lot about him. But obviously, he's looking after his own son and say there. But Hull have signed Jordan Abdul, Zach Hardacre, and Ollie Holmes.
And
Ollie
John
Holmes.
Asiata, of course.
And Asiata from there, his injury, he's at the age. I'm sorry, but Hull FC, what signing journeyman?
Yeah.
Signing journeymen. Do they really think these sort of players are going to get them where they want to get? Do they think they're going to get them in the top 4? You look at the ages, you look at the injuries, they're picking up from there. I'm sorry, but for me, I think that for the black and whites, this is a wrong philosophy. Signing journeymen rugby league players, not for me.
Yeah. I mean, they have been linked with Jaden Sullivan, haven't they, as well? The West Tigers halfback.
Who's he? I've never heard of him.
No,
Yeah.
well, and it's worth pointing out that West Tigers are at the bottom of the league as well in the NRL. So,
Another one of my teams struggling. Jeez.
Yeah.
One of the interesting signings, they've signed a young player, Trey Stewart. He's been playing New South Wales Cup, Queensland Cup. He plays fullback, and I've seen some of his highlights. He looks like quite a creative, nifty player, but I just worry what impact is that going to have on young Logan Moy, who's shown a lot of promise coming through for Hull.
Well, Hull never develop their young players properly. There are countless examples of young players who have come through the Hull system who have looked as though they could be world beaters, and then they don't develop into world beaters. They ultimately leave Hull and go somewhere else, very often playing better elsewhere than they played for Hull. But I mean, for example, you've just mentioned a young kid there playing full back. A year ago they signed Tex Hoy as a fullback from Newcastle Knights. Who I don't think is a bad player, but then they let him go to Castleford. He plays better for Castleford than he did for Hull, seemingly. There's something not right about when we talk about values and. We
DNA in a club. What
DNA in a club. That's right.
What is Hull's DNA?
Well,
what is it?
They need to learn, don't they? They need to create something at Hull because I was talking to they've got quite a few players out at the moment at other clubs, and I was talking to one club guy who was saying that one of the players they've got from Hull commented on how much better it is at the loan club than it is at Hull. That's disastrous, isn't it?
You see, also, I think the last time I was on the podcast, I used this word quite a lot on that, but was trust in players. Hull don't seem to trust the British players.
No.
Hull don't seem to trust them lads who are playing, they're 18, 19 now. They just don't seem to trust the young British players. And it's not just with Hull. I think it's a lot of the British clubs. They let them have 2, 3, maybe 4 games. Oh, he's not quite ready. I think we'll just leave him alone for a while.
Yeah.
No, certainly Hull, they don't trust the British talent, what they've got in their squad.
Well, I mean, there's a perfect example at the moment with young Jack Charles, who's played several games now for Hull, looks extremely promising, needs to be nurtured, as far as I'm concerned. And Jack Charles has come out and said, that his whole life has been aimed at playing for Hull.
Correct.
He's a Hull FC young lad, has been from an early age. His dream was to play for Hull. Well, those are the sort of words that, you want every player to say, don't you? And, and they don't want to be signing people who are going to block his future pathway because that would be disastrous, really, as far as I'm concerned.
You can guarantee from that young kid he will give 100% every training session, 100% every match day, because all he wants to do, he just wants to be the best what he can be, day in, day out, week in and week out.
And they should be developing him to be a future England or Great Britain
And it's that
player.
word, put the trust into him.
Yeah.
Put the trust into him. It's like, again, we're talking about DNA, we're talking about Wigan. Look at the trust that they put in Harry Smith. Look at the trust they have put, because Harry Smith struggled at first, but they said, hold on, he's struggling. But they said, we're going to stick by him. We're going to stick by him. And there ain't too many clubs who do that with the British talent over here.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't agree more, Gary.
No, absolutely. Now, moving on, we also had State of Origin kicking off last week.
Yes.
My Queensland, obviously 38 points
what are you
to
smiling
10.
at? What are you smiling at? Man,
I've been smiling all week, mate.
Oh, maroon. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I always,
you've got a blue in the middle here.
And I'll tell you why. No,
We'll end it here, Gary. You can go home.
You're disappointing a winning team, mate.
I'll tell you why, Gary, because of Wally Lewis.
All right.
Back in 1983, he played for Wakefield.
Oh, because you're supporting a winning team, then that's because of Wally.
Yeah. Well, Wakefield weren't a winning team actually, but Wally was just a sensation.
The Maroons. Yeah.
Wally was a sensation.
You weren't an Australian supporter then when he was playing against us in the Ashes.
No, of course not. No.
That's all right.
I wouldn't shout against you, mate. I wouldn't dare shout against you. No, but I mean, of course, the game was hit by that send-off, wasn't it, of Joseph Suaalii. And I think, it was the right decision. I mean, he absolutely clattered Reece Walsh, and Reece Walsh was out of the game. It ended his game, and New South Wales were down to 12 men, and the inevitable defeat followed, didn't it?
And to give New South Wales credit, they hung in the match for quite a while. It still remained a contest until 55 minutes mark,
they got
and then
back
Queensland
to
sort of
They got back to 2010, didn't they?
Yeah, they hung in there as long as possible, didn't they? But then obviously the class and the quality.
Yeah.
And I say the Maroons from there. But I'd say, but how good is he and how quick is he? He's the hammer. Jeez. What a superstar he is.
He just glides, doesn't he?
Oh, he just makes it look so easy, doesn't he? It just makes it look so easy. But yeah, Maroons were in the up. I'm a Blues. So come on, Melbourne. Let's go the Blues. Come on.
Yes.
We'll
I mean, there was, that tackle by Suwali, quite a few people after the game sort of questioned whether actually New South Wales had deliberately decided to target Reece Walsh in an overly aggressive way, and whether, Suwali had come out and taken that on board, really, and, had gone in recklessly. I mean, who knows? You can never be quite sure what the coach told the team to do, and obviously when you've got a superstar like Reece Walsh playing against you, you are going to target him and try and find ways to stop him.
Yeah.
But you can't go into what's, not legal, can you?
Well, that's it. I mean, if you look at it in the real world, if you, accidentally kill someone, you still go to prison.
Of course, yes.
And, they don't really take accidents too much into consideration.
Anything, as we know now, anything around the head, you're getting penalised, or you're getting sin-binned, or you're getting sent off.
Yeah.
It's disappointing that it did spoil the game. Even I felt just a bit deflated as a Queensland fan, because that's not how you want to win. You want to win against their best team. It was certainly reckless, and there were a few incidents beforehand where you could see they were trying to put a big hit on just to try and let him know that they were there, as you would. But, I mean, I think Joseph didn't know that Reece was going to lose his legs as he was heading into that tackle. No. But, Martyn, you sort of raised a point in your column. Perhaps we should revisit the send-off rule?
Well, yes. I mean, this guy, Andy Marinos, who's behind the Christchurch bid to get an NRL club, he was in charge of Super Rugby, the rugby union competition, at one time. And they're introducing a new rule whereby when a player gets sent off, he initially gets a yellow card and is sent off for 10 minutes, regardless of the incident. And then off the pitch, the bunker, as it is in Australia, would decide whether that offence deserves a full red card, and if so, it would be converted. They'd announce that it was a red card after examining the incident closely, and then the team whose player had been sent off would then be without a player for 20 minutes, but after 20 minutes, they'd be able to bring on a replacement player, so that it would even up the game again. And basically, Marino said that they're looking to do this in rugby union because there are too many examples where a player being sent off effectively settles the game, as we saw in the State of Origin last week. So I don't know whether that would be a route that we would want to go down. I'm not sure whether I'm in favour of it, but I think it's worth considering.
No, absolutely. And I was thinking about, Ashley Klein, he copped a lot of criticism for the send-off, but I sort of commend him for
none whatsoever
making that call. Yeah. And I've got no doubt the bunker would have been in his ear saying, we recommend you send this guy off.
Yeah.
So I think any decision he made on the day would have been heavily criticised regardless. If it was just a 10 in the bin, Queensland fans would have been blowing up about it.
Yeah.
But I agree. I do think that would be a good fix. 20 minutes in the bin, or was sent off, obviously, and then you can bring another player back on.
Well, funnily enough, there was a send-off in the Rugby Union Premiership final at the weekend. Bath got a man sent off, but actually the game ended up very, Northampton, with Lee Radford as their defence coach, incidentally, another ex-Hull man who seems to be doing pretty well after having left Hull. They won what turned out to be quite a tight game.
You see, again, the debate would be Reece Walsh, who was one of the Maroons' best players, or he's one of their best players, or better players, you would say. He's gone for the full match, and then
that's the argument.
Yeah, he's gone for the full match, but then New South Wales, if he's sent off permanently, they get a guy on to make it 13-13 after 20 minutes. If you can hold on here, they've purposely gone out to take out one of our best players, and then knowing that after 20 minutes, if it is confirmed that he's been sent off, they're back to the full quartet.
And that might be the clinching argument.
So that could be one of the big debates about it. Yeah, because they think, all right, we'll take out their best player. make it easier for us.
It
it would encourage thuggery, which we don't want anymore on best players around the world. But then he just would say, all right, for 20 minutes we're going to struggle, but then we're back to us full 13. But they've lost their best player because we've taken him out.
No, true.
That's right.
The other thing I thought was Billy Slater ended up being a genius move, having Selwyn Cobbo as a back on the bench. Obviously, they just reshuffled, put Hammer at fullback, Selwyn into the centres, and off they went.
I mean, a few people speculated that Slater had feared them targeting Reece Walsh and had to make contingency plans in the event that happened. And if that's so, I mean, he's a genius, isn't he? You know, but
so you mentioned that Reece Walsh had it been in the media something, and New South Wales says we're going to target him.
Yeah,
was it out there before?
Well, some of the older ex-Origin players made some very strong comments, didn't they? Saying that if they were on the field, they would
target Walsh.
They would sort out Walsh. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right. Well, they did sort him, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yes. Although I wouldn't have expected Suali to be the one who did it, but that's right.
It also baffled me. Some of the New South Wales fans online were claiming that Walsh was pretending to be knocked out, so that I'm like, in today's day and age, you wouldn't pretend to be knocked out because then you're going to miss the rest of the game.
Well, it was out for 2 minutes. I mean, if that's pretending, I don't know what's real.
Well, I tell you what, if that's pretending, he wants an Oscar.
Yeah, that's right.
Not just one; he wants half a dozen. Jeez,
as soon as the arms go stiff, it's serious business.
He wasn't pretending there, that's for sure.
No, absolutely. All right, fellas, we'll get into this weekend's matchups. I'll get your quick picks. So Friday night, we've got Hull KR taking on Huddersfield.
Hull KR by 20.
Yeah, Hull KR quite easily. Huddersfield are poor, aren't they? The great atmosphere they've got there at Ulkisser Rovers. I'm going Ulkisser Rovers by 24.
Okay. The next matchup, we've got Warrington taking on Salford.
I think Salford will be struggling actually this week, and I think Warrington will want to bounce back. I think they'll win by probably about 16 points.
Yeah, it'll be a bounce back for Warrington. Even Salford will be thinking, Warrington after Wembley. There's no celebrations for Warrington. They want a bounce back. Warrington want to be back on the field as quickly as possible. I'm going Warrington by 18.
And I think the Salford club ought to stop their players from watching this podcast after what Garry said about Paul Rowley going to Leeds, because that would be dispiriting for them, wouldn't it?
It might. Well, I'm hoping Rowley might be in charge before the Hull game at the weekend, but if not, hopefully the week after against Lee. Sorry, Salford fans.
They won't tune in next week now. They'll be too disappointed.
Do you think I'll get invited for hospitality at Salford?
In the next matchup, we have Castleford taking on Wigan.
Well, you can't see anything. I mean, Wigan will have celebrated this week, won't they? And there's often a bit of a reaction after winning the Challenge Cup that, I think there's a history of teams not necessarily winning the following week, but I can't see anything other than a Wigan win here. Can you?
I agree. And I say, Wigan would have celebrated pretty hard, and I would imagine they would have reported back maybe Wednesday to say, and they'll just have a remake. They'll have a captain's run Thursday. Get ready for Cass. Cass aren't very good, and they'll be thinking, Wigan, we may have them, but Wigan too much quality. I'm going Wigan by 18.
Yep. Yeah. Then we have Hull FC taking on
Leeds. An absolute rubbish Hull side, a very, very poor Leeds team, but Leeds have a little bit more quality. I'm hoping a little bit more quality. I'm hoping it's Ronan Smith's last game. Leeds by 10. Paul Rowley gets sorted out for Lee.
I agree, Leeds by 10. That's what I was going to say.
Good on the Garry Schofield Cup almost.
Yes, yeah.
Then we have Catalans taking on Lee. I think Lee are travelling down to Perpignan.
Lee are taking a lot of fans to Perpignan. Catalans have a lot of injury worries at the moment. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think Lee will win this game by 6 points.
Ooh, it's a big call. Yeah, they'll take plenty of fans there. They'll love the atmosphere from there. Derek will love the atmosphere as well, won't he?
Yeah.
Out there, but I just think Catalans, big pack of forwards. If McIlaurin's back, I'm going to go Catalans by 14.
Yeah. And then the final matchup, we have London taking on St Helens. Down in London, I believe.
Well, I think St Helens by at least 40.
It's moved to the stoop. Massive wide pitch from there from St Helens. They've had the week off. London enjoying themselves, but simply not good enough. I'm going St Helens by 54.
Yeah.
Do you think this is where we'll start to see St Helens taking off.
I'll tell you what, Sid Tellers will be fed up with all the publicity we're going to get, the success what Wigan are having. Don't worry about that. So the motivation for Sid Tellers is quite simply, we want the Warriors.
I think next time Saints play Wigan is going to be really interesting.
It is the league game, but Sid Tellers, they'll be saying, yes, we want Old Trafford and we want revenge. Can't wait.
No, absolutely.
All right, gents, anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up today, Martyn?
No, just another feather in your cap, the women's state of origin, if you watch that.
Yeah, forgot about
Queensland taking it to a third game, 11-10 in Newcastle in front of a full house.
Yep.
And again, fantastic viewing figures on Channel 9.
But there was another record-breaking crowd attendance. I think it was 26 or 27.
26,800 or something. Yeah.
Which, just pipped the Suncorp crowd, I think.
That's right. And it was raining cats and dogs as well. I mean,
there's been a few matches like that in Newcastle this year.
Aussie fans don't normally come out in rain, do they?
No.
But they did in this case.
They would have had their rain ponchos
on.
Yeah. No, great to see, and it's good that series will now come to a decider.
In Townsville.
Yeah, so I'm sure that'll be a packed house as well.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, all right. We will wrap it up now. Don't forget, if you do want to grab your subscription to League Express, head along to www.totalrl.com/shop.
And get a hold of a copy of League Express. It's in the shops this week. It's online, of course, as well. There it is, everything from the Challenge Cup Finals day. And we also have an 8-page tribute to Rob Burrow, which is, quite worth reading, I think, if I can just find that. There's the front page of it. Our hero, which of course he was for so many people, and it's, I think, hopefully a fitting tribute to a great player, and so sad to see him go.
Yeah, I just want to say 3 words for Rob Burrow, the little master. Rob, thank you very much for everything what you did at Leeds Rugby League Club.
No, absolutely. All right, we might end it here. Don't forget, guys, if you do want to hit subscribe to our YouTube channel, we've got plenty of great guests coming up in the coming weeks that people won't want to miss, including someone who loves leopard print we touched on earlier, Martyn, so hang out for that one. But yeah, guys, we'll wrap it up here and tune in next week. Thanks, Gary.
Been a pleasure, guys. I look forward to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Cheers, Jack.